excited to show you what cloud looks like today. So let's go ahead and dive in to Laravel Cloud. All right. Ooh, I need a new Chrome window. All right. Let's go to Laravel Cloud. Here we are on the Laravel Cloud sign-in page. Go ahead and log in. If I can type my password correctly. All right, and here we are on the cloud dashboard. This is where I can see an overview of my applications, my recent deployments, my recent commits, and all of these projects live within my cloud demo organization up here at the top left. So I can organize my projects by organization. So I could have a side projects organization, or my Laravel organization, or here my cloud demo organization. And it's really great. I can jump into any of these applications, see their environments and their recent commits, and get an overview of what's happening with them. I can even jump between applications using our new command palette. So if I want to jump into Beep, I can just go to Beep in the command palette. Or if I want to jump over to the other application, I can just pick that in the command palette. It's super fast to navigate. We tried to make cloud incredibly productive. All right, so again, we're in the cloud demo project or demo organization, but let's start totally from scratch. Let's jump into an empty organization and see what it's like to deploy a fresh Laravel application out to cloud. So we're going to use the ship PHP organization. All right, so let's pick new application. And I want to show you just how easy it is to get started on Laravel Cloud. It's unlike anything that's been built before for PHP. I've already linked my GitHub account to cloud, so I'm just going to pick the Laracon EU demo. Why don't I just call this Laracon EU demo like that? We'll put it in US East, but we actually have 4 regions right now with more to come, probably before launch. Right now we're in Ohio, Frankfurt, London, and Singapore. All right, so I'm going to pick US East and hit Create Application. Once that application is created, it will create an environment for that main branch. And here I can get an overview of my entire stack and customize it and build it how I want. So you can see I've been allocated a small compute cluster for my app. I've got my edge network and domains out here, which we'll dive into later. But really, all I need to do is hit deploy. All right, and Laravel Cloud will start packaging my application and deploying it to our managed infrastructure. I don't need to do anything else if I don't want to. Laravel Cloud is fine-tuned for Laravel apps, so it knows exactly how to build, deploy, run, scale, and secure Laravel apps in a way that's never been built before. All right, so we come through here, you can see that it's installing my composer dependencies. I'm sure many of us have seen this output many times. All right, it's getting all that done. Looks like my build is finished, so now it's about to move on to the deployment phase, where it's actually rolling this app out onto our infrastructure. Laravel Cloud runs on AWS. It's fully managed. The infrastructure team has spent so much time perfecting this platform to make it robust and secure and scalable for your applications. All right, so it looks like our app is deployed. So I'm going to go back to my environment, and you can see right here, we've been assigned a Laravel Cloud domain. Every application on Laravel Cloud gets its own Laravel Cloud domain that you can share with your teammates or use to collaborate. And boom, here's our new Laravel application. It's already out and running on Laravel Cloud. All right, so that was really fast. That felt really easy. What else can we do? Okay, so let's close this out. Now, most Laravel applications, they're full stack. They have a database, maybe they have a cache, maybe they have storage. Let's go ahead and start adding these pieces to our application. So this demo app I have out here is actually using that new Livewire starter kit we saw just a few minutes ago. So I'm going to need a database and a cache, and we'll look at storage later. So to add a database, I just go right here to this canvas view of my infrastructure, and I hit Add Database. I don't have any databases in this organization yet, so I can just go ahead and create one right from here. I'm going to choose Laravel Serverless Postgres. This will auto-scale based on the needs of my application. So I don't really need to worry about thinking too hard up front about how much scale I need. The database will scale up as much as I need so that I can just focus on building my app. All right, I can name this cluster if I want to. That default name sounds fine. And then within the cluster, you can create multiple databases for each app that's using this overall database cluster. We'll just call this main. That's also fine for now. We could customize some additional things about the database with the region, or how long it will hibernate, or the amount of time that can pass with no activity before the database will hibernate. What this means is, you can see I've got 300 seconds here. If our database doesn't receive any queries for 5 minutes, it will actually go to sleep. And the next time it's queried, it will wake up. And these databases wake up in a couple hundred milliseconds. It doesn't take long for them to wake up. But what's awesome is while they're sleeping, you don't pay for compute. That makes Laravel Cloud and serverless Postgres no-brainer for side projects, staging environments, where you can be really cost efficient. While your application is not being used, you're not paying for the compute time. It's really awesome. All right, I'm going to crank this up to, let's do 1800, which I think is like 30 minutes. And we can also customize the auto-scaling range. I'm going to bump this up just a little bit to give it a bigger range to scale between. All right, so I'll save this. And now we'll just hit Create Database Cluster. And that database is being created now. And now it's already created. That's how quick it is to make a new serverless Postgres database on cloud. Let's go ahead and add a cache while we're in here. New cache. Laravel Cloud Key Value Store is compatible with the Redis API. So that's great. We can pick what size we want. 250 megs is fine, but we could scale it up if we want. And we can again pick our region. And I'll just hit Create Cache. All right, I've added a database and a cache. So you can see here I've got unsaved changes to my infrastructure. I'm just going to hit Save and Deploy. All right, and Cloud is going to start rolling out a new deployment with our new infrastructure in place, our new database and our new cache. And you notice I never had to mess with environment variables. I never had to mess with config variables. Laravel Cloud is really built and fine-tuned for Laravel. And all the environment variables we need to connect to this database and this cache are just automatically injected into the application. All right, so let's let this deployment roll out. All deployments on cloud are rolled out with zero downtime by default, of course. So as this is going out, even building an entirely new infrastructure, none of our customers are going to experience downtime. All right, looks like we've made it through the build phase. Let's go ahead and go down here to the deployment phase. Looks like it's wrapping up. You can see it ran my migrations because we attached that database. And now it's rolling out to our new cluster. All right, looks like that is done. Great, so let's just hit visit. And now we should be able to register with the application since we have a database. All right. All right, so we've got our database. You can see over here on the, let me make this a little bit bigger. You can see over here on the left, I've got a few tabs where we can try some of the other new features. Let's click the cache tab. And you can see we've got this loading thing while it pulls something from the cache. And now if we hit this route again, it doesn't have to do that until the cache expires, which it will in a few seconds. Our cache is busted. So we're able to interact with our cache. Zero configuration, zero environment variable changing. Everything just works. Our database and our cache is in place. Now, let's go back to our Laravel Cloud dashboard. And here we have that overview again, that canvas view of our infrastructure. And let me show you a few cool things about these resources we've added. All right, so if I go here to database, I can hit view credentials. I can do a few other things like replace or detach the database. For example, if I click detach here, it's prompting me to save and deploy that. Of course, we don't want to do that. I'm just going to reset that. It pops right back in. We can also go to view credentials. All right, so this is where it shows me the credentials for my database in this kind of list view, or I can get them as environment variables. Or let me show you this, which is really cool, a deep link, where I think if I click open here, it will actually open this database in Table Plus. So you can see there's our 2 users up there, Taylor at Laravel.com, which someone stole from me, and TaylorOtwell@gmail.com. All right, so it's really great. And the same for cache, right? I can view credentials, I can replace, or I can detach the cache. All right, and again, with a deep link, that will just pop open Table Plus directly to that Redis compatible database. It's really easy to use. All right, so we've got a database and cache. Let's go ahead and finish out this kind of resource story by adding some object storage. All right, so I'm going to hit Add Bucket. I can just create a bucket right here in Laravel Cloud. I never have to leave Cloud for any of this. For creating a database, for creating a cache, for adding a bucket, it's all right here in the platform, all in one cohesive infrastructure deployment pipeline. All right, so I'm going to pick the bucket type, which is Laravel Object Storage. I can give the bucket a name as well as pick the visibility for this bucket. Laravel Object Storage buckets are S3 compatible through a partnership with Cloudflare R2 behind the scenes. So this is a really robust platform for your object storage. Once I hit Create Bucket, let that create. All right, and this is really cool. This shows how Laravel Cloud is very fine-tuned for Laravel. So once I create the bucket, it's asking me, what name do I want to assign to the disk that my Laravel application will access this bucket by? So you may know if you build Laravel applications in your config file systems file, there is an array of disks where you give them a name and it has all of the kind of config for that disk, how to access it on S3 and so on. And this lets you actually do that right here. And so when I specify this disk name, that's what Cloud is going to inject into my Laravel app. So I can just do storage put or storage get using this disk name. Private is fine for now. So I'll hit Add Bucket. And this looks good. You can see that it's my default bucket in my Laravel application. And I'm just going to hit Save and Deploy. And again, it's going to roll out a new deployment of my application with 0 downtime. All right, while this is deploying, let me jump around to maybe some of these settings we've skipped over so far. So these are my environment settings. An application can have multiple environments, which we'll see later. So I can rename the environment. I can even give it a new color. For example, if this is production, maybe I want that to be red. So I'm going to change that to red. I can change the Git branch. I can change my PHP version, my Node version, my HTTP timeout, my graceful shutdown timeout, which is how long Laravel Cloud will keep your old deployment around while your queued jobs finish up or while any incoming requests that haven't been completed yet are processed. I can customize my environment variables. I can see all of the environment variables that Cloud is injecting for me, which I'm not going to reveal live here on stage. And of course, I can delete the environment. But let me show you something cool about environment variables while I'm in here. If I hit Reveal Secrets and jump into this, let's say I try to override a variable that Cloud was injecting. So like app debug, for example. You can see that it warns me live that I'm overriding an injected variable. That's sort of just a hint for hey, I hope you know what you're doing here because you're overriding something we think your application needs. It's really great. All right, so that's some of the settings. Let's go into our application settings. So here I can actually set a photo for the application as well as change a few other things about it. I think I've got a little Amsterdam logo here. All right, we'll save that. I can also change my default environment and just even delete the entire application if I want. All right, so let's go to my environments and go back to my main environment. Looks like our deployment is done. Yep, it looks like it is. So let's go ahead and visit our app again. We'll go to the dashboard. And I've got the storage route. And let me pull up the code for this so you can see what it does. Laracon EU demo. We'll go into the routes. And if we look at storage, you can see that all I'm doing is doing storage disk put with this image, which I've got stored in the application. And then I'm just going to return a temporary URL. Remember, this is a private bucket, so I need to create a pre-signed URL to allow access to that image. But what I want you to see here is that I'm just calling storage disk. And because Cloud knows about Laravel and it knows this is my default disk, this is just available to me. I don't have to have any different configuration or any knowledge that this is even running on Cloud at all, right? This is exactly what it would look like during local development, which is really great, really convenient. All right, so let's hit the storage route. That's going to put the file on our disk, on our bucket. Then we can hit view photo. And here we've got that photo, which was signed with a temporary URL, which we should see expiring. And there it goes. So it's just that easy to attach a storage bucket. So just this easily, we've had an application deployed, a database, a cache, a bucket, all with zero configuration, with zero environment variables we had to tinker with zero servers we had to think about, rolling out deployments with zero downtime. It's incredibly productive. All right, so what else can we do with this environment? Let's jump through some of these other tabs. Let's check out the commands tab. So here we can actually just issue arbitrary commands to an available replica of our application. So for example, I can do PHP artisan list. It's going to fire that off to an available replica, and I'm going to get the output. Okay, really simple, really easy to use, really convenient for when you just need to run a one-off artisan command against your application that's running on cloud. We can also view our application's logs. So I can come in here, I can view my recent application logs, I can search my logs, I can even look at my access logs to see the activity that's happening in my application. And of course, Nightwatch will give you an even deeper insight and overview of what's happening in your application. All right, we've already looked at settings. Let's go back to our environment. Okay, so we deployed our application, but what if we want to scale it? You know, I just deployed it to the default instance compute size, which is small. What if our application has a lot of traffic? All we need to do to adjust our scaling settings is click on the app. And we get this nice flyout window where I can customize everything about the scale of my application. All right, so right now I'm running on a small instance. Let's go ahead and bump that up to medium. That gives me more CPU, more RAM. Then let's tinker with these auto scaling settings. So let me walk through these. So by default, my auto scaling setting is set to none. That means my application is essentially running on a single replica, or you could think of it as like a single server if you were thinking in terms of Laravel Forge. But I can actually pick custom auto scaling and choose a range of replicas that I want Laravel Cloud to auto scale my application between as demand increases. This is really convenient because it allows for predictable billing. I know how much compute I'm willing to allocate at a maximum and at a minimum, which lets me have predictable performance, but also predictable billing. Or for the most demanding applications, I can go full unlimited auto scaling, which will scale all the way up as much as needed to handle the demands of my application. All right, for now, let's use custom, and we'll keep it between 2 and 4. And down here, since Cloud is fine-tuned for Laravel, I can even do really nice things like enable the scheduler or enable Laravel Octane. It's super easy, and all I need to do is just deploy, and everything just works. All right, I'm going to turn that off. I can also configure hibernation here. So hibernation, similar to what we saw on the database side, can also be applied at the application side. So if my application is not receiving traffic, Laravel Cloud will put it to sleep, and I don't pay for any compute time while the application is sleeping. This makes it absolutely a no-brainer to throw every side project, every staging environment on Laravel Cloud. When it's not needed, it'll hibernate, and when a request comes in, Cloud will wake the application up and serve the request. All right, I'm going to leave that off for now. So once we've picked a new auto-scaling strategy, all we need to do is save and deploy. And Cloud is going to roll that out to our increased replicas, total new infrastructure cluster, all with zero downtime, in roughly 1 minute. While this is deploying, I want to show you an app that is hibernating. All right, so let's jump into a different organization. Let's jump into Cloud Demo, and let's go to the Swipple organization. And you can see right here, this application, see how it's got that hibernating symbol in the top right of its main environment? And watch what happens if I come into this environment. Up here at the top, you get this really nice hibernating bar that shows you the status of the application. And if I hover over this, I can see for how long my application has been hibernating. And it just woke up. So I can go ahead and visit that application. And boom, it's online. And when the application goes back to sleep, we'll know that it's hibernating. So you get a quick overview of what's hibernating and what's not. All right, let's jump back into our Laracon EU application and into our main environment. Has our deployment finished? Yep, looks like our deployment is totally done. So our application is now running on between 2 to 4 replicas on Laravel Cloud, and we increased the maximum CPU and RAM allocated to our application. All right, what else can we do with cloud? Queued jobs, yes, important part of Laravel. So if you use Laravel, how many of you use queued jobs in your application? It's probably one of the most popular features of Laravel. So if we go back into our application, let's go to the dashboard, and you can see here I've got this queue tab, and I kind of got these pending transactions out here, and they're staying pending because we don't have any queue workers. And what's happening behind the scenes here is when I hit process transactions, it creates 50 transactions in the database and dispatches a queued job for each transaction that just marks the transaction as processed. But you can see all of these are staying pending because we don't have any queue workers. So let's go ahead and fix that. So when it comes to queue workers on cloud, you have two options. You can run the queue workers on the same replicas that are serving your app. So this is really convenient. You don't need to spin up dedicated worker clusters just to process a few queued jobs. I can just pop open my app, go down to the background processes section, hit new background process. I get this really nicely designed overview of all of the available Laravel queue options. I don't need to customize any of this because I'm just using the database queue. And I can pick how many instances of that process I want. Let's do 3. And I'll hit create background process and then save and deploy it out to my infrastructure. It's super easy. All right, so we're going to let that build. Once this rolls out, we should see those pending transactions change to processed. All right, I'm just building our application. And it looks like it's about to roll out the infrastructure. All right, so we should see these start changing to processed really, really soon. And then once we get our queue workers rolled out on this app instance, I'll show you a way for the application with the most demanding queue needs to spin up dedicated worker clusters to handle your queued jobs on separate instances. All right, boom, they're processed. So we've got our queue worker running, the application's deployed, I can make more transactions, and we should see them process live as the queue workers work the jobs. Okay, super simple. So that's option 1 for running queue workers on cloud. Like I said, we can actually add a worker cluster right here on our infrastructure. This lets you build custom worker replicas with their own scaling settings, their own CPU and RAM settings that are totally separate from the replicas that are serving your web traffic. All right, so this would be like the equivalent on Forge to standing up a web server and then maybe a worker server that processes all your queued jobs. All right, so let's make this a medium instance. We'll do, let's say, between 3 and 5 replicas, and it will auto scale these queue replicas based on how much CPU and RAM our machines are using. And of course, we want to add a background process, and we'll put, let's say, 3 queue work processes on each replica. Then all we need to do is hit save and deploy. Many as you want. So giving them a name kind of helps you differentiate what your different worker clusters are doing. All right, so there's that new cluster, and that's going to start rolling out. Again, with 0 downtime, and now we're going to have workers running on our app cluster and on our dedicated worker cluster. So we should have quite a few queue workers running now. All right, so while this is deploying, let's look at one more tab we haven't seen yet, which is metrics. This particular app is pretty new, so we don't have a lot of metrics. So again, I'm going to jump into another application where we already have some data. Let's jump into Latterly. All right, so this has been receiving traffic. I'll jump into the main environment and hit this metrics tab. And you can see here we've got a few different metrics charts. We can see our edge network responses. This is sort of like the 400s, 500s, and successful responses we're seeing coming into our application. You can see this application looks totally healthy. We just have a few 400s, but mainly all successful. Here we can see our CPU usage over time. Okay, we're using not much CPU, roughly 15%, and our RAM usage over time. So Laravel Cloud runs Laravel apps really efficiently. You can see this Laravel app is just using 65 megs of memory on average. Okay, so it's really efficient, really fast. All right, so that's the metrics tab. Let's jump back into our Laracon EU application. All right, and it looks like our new worker cluster is actually rolled out and everything should be running. Let's go to visit, dashboard queue. I should be able to make some more transactions. All right, that looks good. Workers are still running. All right, so we've got a dedicated worker cluster. So let me show you one thing that's really cool. You can see how we've got quite a sophisticated application going here now. We've got our edge network, we've got our app, we've got a worker cluster, we've got our database, our cache, our bucket. I really haven't configured anything in the Laravel app. It all just works. But since it's getting kind of crowded, I can actually switch from detailed view to compact view. And just get a quick overview of my entire infrastructure on cloud really quickly and really easily. And I can still come in here and edit the database, edit the cache, but it gives me a quick overview of my entire topology of my infrastructure. All right, I'll pop it back open to detailed view. So that's a lot. There's a little bit more. Bear with me for a few more minutes. We've got our application. What if we want to add a new feature to the application? We want to start something on a new branch. How can we deploy that to cloud? Let's go to our terminal, go to our demo app, and let's just check out a new branch called new feature. Pop this open in good old trusty Sublime Text, and we'll add a route up here. Let's call it new feature. We'll just return h1, hi, Laracon. All right, so that looks good. We'll commit that. New feature and push it to GitHub. Now, what if we want to try out this new feature on Laravel Cloud? So our teammates can play with it. We can see if it works really great before we ship it to production. How can we do that? It's super easy. So each application can have as many environments as you want. And each environment is totally separate from the others in terms of infrastructure and compute. So let's create a new environment. I just pick my branch, new feature. It's already been live synced into cloud. I can give it a name and a color, but I'll just go ahead and hit create environment. And here we are with a brand new infrastructure canvas. And I'm just going to hit deploy to get this new feature live as quickly as possible. I can easily swap between environments up here in the nav bar, just like I can swap between applications and organizations. It's really easy to navigate. All right, so now I'm back here on my new feature environment. Again, I can customize all of the settings for the app, the compute, the auto scaling. I can add a database, but I can also add an existing database within the organization. So we previously created the Laracon EU demo cluster. I can just attach that to this environment if I want to reuse it to play with maybe staging data or data that's already seeded. It's super easy. And the same with cache and object storage. Looks like this new environment is in the deployment phase. So we should be getting our own cloud domain for this environment right now, and there it is. So each environment gets its own unique cloud domain that lets you access it separately from all other environments. And we should be able to hit this domain. And then we should be able to go to new feature. Hi Laracon, which of course doesn't exist over on the other environment. So it's super easy to just spin up new environments. It just takes a few minutes to throw one out on Laravel Cloud, let your team play with a new feature, and see how it feels before you ship to production. The last thing I want to demo for you on cloud before we wrap up is actually going to production. So let's go back to our main branch, and let's put a custom domain on this app. That makes it real, right? So let's go ahead and hit add domain under our network. And I can just do laravel-cloud-demo.com, which I've already bought, and hit add. It's going to ask me a couple things. It's going to ask if I want wildcard subdomains. So Laravel Cloud supports that, or it asks me if I want to redirect from www to the Apex domain. Both these defaults make sense for my app, so I'm just going to hit add domain. All right, and then it gives me a couple of DNS records that I need to go and add to my domain registrar. And this will actually bring our custom domain up live on cloud. I've actually already added these IP addresses to my DNS, so they should be verifying relatively quickly. While that's verifying, I'll go into the org and show you a couple settings. So of course we can have our general settings, but you can also add members to your organization. And we'll talk more about how many members you can have soon. But you can collaborate on cloud really easily. We want your whole team to be able to use cloud, to be able to see your infrastructure, to be able to review your deployments, and to be able to create environments. All right, and just how we saw it was super easy to create new environments, you can imagine what we could do with this in the near future. Already on our roadmap, and I'm sure you're already thinking about it, the ability to have automatic preview deployments is something we can't wait to explore later this year. All right, so I'm going to go back to my main environment. It looks like my domain is already verified. You can see we've got laravelclouddemo.com, and we're actually live with a custom domain, just that easily. All right. That is a really full walkthrough of Laravel Cloud, and I could not be prouder of the Laravel team for the amount of polish and consideration and thoughtfulness that has gone into this platform. Every time I use it, I'm honestly just blown away by how magical it feels. Even on the plane ride over here, I threw an application on Laravel Cloud, and it took under a minute to get it out live with my own Laravel Cloud domain. I believe this is absolutely game-changing for Laravel, and I hope game-changing for PHP as a whole, and heck, even game-changing for web development as a whole. I want it. Laravel is the most productive way to build full-stack web applications. I genuinely believe that, and I feel like this makes it so accessible to build your Laravel app and get it live to the world. All right. When can you have it? I'm about to answer his question. This is the question I'm sure many of you have been asking, and I'm super pumped to announce that in just 3 weeks, we are going live with Laravel Cloud. On February 24th, that's exactly 3 weeks from today, we are launching the new Laravel.com. We are launching Laravel Cloud. We are launching Laravel starter kits, and we're launching Laravel 12. It's the biggest day in Laravel history, and we couldn't be more excited to ship it to you. I know another question you're probably asking is how much is it going to cost? Let's go over that. So let's start with our sandbox plan. Our sandbox plan has no monthly fixed fee. It's $0 per month fixed. You just pay for what you're using. But what's great is because of hibernation, Laravel Cloud is super accessible. So you can hop on the platform, play with it, create a demo project, throw all of your side projects out there, let them hibernate while they're not being used. You only pay for what you actually use. 3 users can be included in your organization on the sandbox plan. Flex compute usage pricing starts at just a little over a half penny per hour, which comes out to approximately about $5 a month. Serverless Postgres starts at 4 cents an hour. Caches start at just about a penny an hour. And object storage starts at 2 cents per gigabyte. This is our usage-based pricing for the sandbox plan. Our production plan is just $20 a month, plus usage discounts. It comes with custom domains, auto-scaling, access to larger replica sizes, increased log retention, and additional organization users. And for the first time, we'll be focusing on business and enterprise plans with unlimited auto-scaling, dedicated compute clusters, advanced networking, cross-product discounts with things like Nightwatch, SOC 2, and support SLAs, which we feel like I'm super happy with how Laravel Cloud is both extremely accessible, the most accessible product we've ever built, pricing-wise, for our indie hackers, for our dreamers, for our tinkerers. but also scales to enterprise grade for the businesses that depend on it the most. I feel like this is a new beginning for Laravel. And in 3 weeks, the painting we started painting a year ago starts to really come together. A complete web development ecosystem that this community deserves, that I've always wanted to ship on myself all those years ago. We have an incredible backend stack with the framework. We have an incredible front-end stack with Livewire and Inertia. And I can't wait to get it in your hands. There's going to be more work to do. This is just the beginning for a new era of Laravel, for Laravel Cloud, for Laravel Nightwatch. We're going to iterate on these things, but I'm incredibly proud of where they are today. And it begins in 3 weeks. But I want to leave you with a challenge. We must ship. And that goes for all of us. This year, we're embarking on a new journey together. And 2025 will be a historic year for PHP. It'll be a historic year for Laravel. And I hope it'll be a historic year for you. And I challenge you to create something, to create anything, just to dream big. And we want to give you the tools to ship it. You can ship a package, you can ship a video, you can ship a blog post. It doesn't have to be big. I think the most popular function in Laravel has to be the DD function. It gets used more than any other function, and it's tiny. But it's try to ship something. What can you ship this year? I believe that giving people the most powerful and productive web framework is an incredible privilege, right? Enabling someone to create web applications quickly and to ship them to the production, to ship them to their friends, to ship them to their customers, is life-changing in many ways. The ability to create something out of nothing, seemingly, out of your own mind and ship it to production. It's incredibly inspiring to me. And Laravel Cloud and where we're going with Laravel, I feel like, is the culmination of that vision that I've had for Laravel for so many years. And, I want to tell you a quick story from Laracon US before I wrap. After I first unveiled Laravel Cloud, I was kind of in the crowd mingling, and this guy comes up to me with a journal, and he has a pen, and he's like, "Hey, I want you to write me a message." And I'm like, "Okay, this is a little awkward, but I'll just roll with it." And he says, "I was recently laid off, and what would you write to someone that was recently laid off?" And my mind was just like blank for a second, right? It's like a deer in headlights. But then I took his journal, and I wrote, "I believe in you," in the journal. And that's really the message I want to leave with all of you as we ship this new platform is, I believe in you and I believe in us as a community to build really amazing things. And we've been working super hard on making that possible for you.